Good morning, everybody. Yes, good morning, class. We got a couple of, at least one off-topic. First of all, incredibly honored and happy to be back at the Rock. So we haven't been here in a while, Pat, so thank you and your colleagues for hosting us so graciously. Before we get into the reason why we're here today, which is largely a good reason to gather, got to just refer to the weather. And there's going to be a significant weather event this weekend, and Pat will correct us when he comes up to speak. It'll be, I think, our biggest storm in a couple of years. It'll be primarily a North Jersey, particularly as it relates to accumulation event, sort of 1 to 4 inches with the exception of the northwest part of the state, which looks, Pat, like it'll be more in the 4 to 8 inch. South of I-195, it looks like, and the coast looks like more like a rain and high wind event. Sort of Saturday afternoon, snow and mixed precipitation overnight, transitioning into Sunday morning, tapering off, as I say, on Sunday morning. If Diane Scacchetti were here, she'd want me to say that we've begun brining this morning, which is exceptional from our normal habits of brining beginning on July 4th, and especially in the northwest part of the state. And I think especially in Sussex and Warren County, Pat, if I'm not mistaken, as well as down into those sort of west central counties, Morris and Hunterdon in particular. NJ transit equipment and staff are mobilizing. The State Emergency Operations Center will activate, I think, Saturday morning. And as always, if you don't know where else to go, ready.nj.gov. Ready.nj.gov is the place to go. So thank you for allowing me to get that out of the way. Based on what we see now, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Pat, Diane, Christine Sadovi, who's president of the Board of Public Utilities, perhaps the Lieutenant Governor should like to join, and myself again between now and the weekend. We will definitely be communicating at a high level. Let me just say again, it's great to be back at the Rock. I haven't been here in a while, and we've done a lot of work here over the years, everything from the pandemic to public safety to other matters. And it's a good chance for me, with all the women and men in blue with us today, to say our members of law enforcement put their lives on the line for us every single day. And it is thanks to their courageous service that we have made important, and I would argue exceptional, progress in reducing gun violence in New Jersey. Now, that does not mean that we bat 1,000, sadly. Witness yesterday's killing of Imam Hassan Sharif outside of the Masjid Muhammad Mosque in Newark. I'll defer to Matt on this, but I think it's fair to say, you said yesterday, there's no evidence that this is a hate crime, whether it is or it isn't, it's an opportunity for us to condemn hate crimes of any kind, whether it's Islamophobia, whether it's anti-Semitism, or any other hate crimes that have exploded of late, and we condemn them in any and all forms. It is not who we are as a state. And we further commit to do all that we can to protect peoples of all faiths and in communities, all communities in New Jersey. But back to where I started, please keep Imam Hassan Sharif's memory and his family in your prayers. And I mentioned a minute ago that we have what I would argue is exceptional progress to talk about today. And with me to talk about that, I have the honor of being joined by the Lieutenant Governor, Tahisha Way, Attorney General Matt Platkin, Superintendent Colonel Pat Callahan, First Assistant Attorney General Lindsay Rotolo, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Brennan, and many of other colleagues of the New Jersey State Police who are with us today. We're here to mark a historic achievement for public safety in New Jersey, one that is a direct result of our continuing partnership with members of law enforcement and the nation-leading gun safety laws that we have enacted during our administration. This morning we can officially report that in the year 2023, New Jersey saw its lowest number of shootings in nearly 15 years. Last year marked the first time that fewer than 1,000 people were shot in New Jersey since the state police, Pat, I believe, began tracking these numbers in 2009. By reference, we have approximately, this is always a moving target in non-census years, we have approximately 600,000 more residents today than we had in 2009. Sean, how are you? Nice to see you, sir. So it makes the achievement even more remarkable. I want to thank all the terrific leaders who helped make this accomplishment possible, including the Attorney General, Colonel Callahan, the outstanding men and women of the New Jersey State Police, the Department of Law and Public Safety, the public servants in our 21 county prosecutors' offices, our federal law enforcement agencies, and members of law enforcement at the county and local level across the state. These record low numbers say it better than I ever could, but for good measure, let me add that you all are our heroes. I also want to go out of my way and thank profusely the many gun safety advocates who are tireless in their pursuit of gun safety. And let me also add that reaching this milestone was the product as well of our many community partnerships. Improving public safety is a shared goal, one that is shared by community leaders across New Jersey who work every day to make our state the best and safest place in America, I'd argue anywhere in the world, to raise a family. After all, we are all in this together. That's why our administration has sought to provide every possible resource that members of law enforcement need to prevent senseless gun violence and to keep our families safe. Whether it's from funding traditional law enforcement activities, to enacting new legislation, to strengthening community partnerships and community-based violence intervention and prevention programs. At every level, we have introduced innovative solutions and collaborated with hardworking, talented public servants, from the Attorney General's office to local police departments to the aforementioned advocates working on the ground to maintain peace within our neighborhoods. And that last point is crucial because we owe a debt of gratitude to community-based organizations such as the one that I probably know the best, Newark Community Street Team, that have embraced a not just them, but many, that have embraced a data-driven, trauma-informed approach for preventing gun violence, and their efforts have been successful. These community-based organizations have helped mediate disputes so they don't spill over into violence, and they have provided thoughtful, compassionate support to survivors of gun violence. And in doing so, they have proven that a community-oriented strategy is the most effective way to address the roots of gun violence and make our cities safer for everyone. I'm proud to say that our administration, in partnership with the Office of the Attorney General, has provided millions of dollars in funding to expand these community-based violence intervention programs, and we hope to see them grow in the years to come. Matt and Pat will dive into greater detail on how we achieved our under 1,000 goal, but for now, let me once again say thank you. Over the past year together, we have saved a historic number of lives from gun violence in New Jersey. That means more families have remained intact. More children will be able to grow up and live up to their full potential. And we are helping people feel safer in their homes and on our streets. And that is really what public service is all about. So our work is just getting started, and we will not rest until 0 lives are lost to senseless gun violence. Again, Pat, to you and your colleagues, thank you for once again hosting me and us so graciously. With that, please help me welcome to the podium our fantastic Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State, Tahisha Wade.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Governor, for that kind introduction, and many thanks to my dear colleague, Colonel Callahan, for hosting us today at the Rock, and of course, my other colleague and dear friend, Attorney General Platkin, for your service in this space. It is an honor to be with you today to highlight this incredible milestone. Since the Murphy administration entered office, creating a safer state for New Jersey residents has been a top priority. Yes, rates and violence are dropping nationally. However, New Jersey's numbers are notable. When Governor Murphy entered office, on average, more than 2,000 shootings occurred annually in New Jersey, with around 500 firearm-related deaths each year. But in 2023, as the governor noted, there were 924 shootings which occurred, resulting in 191 firearm-related deaths. Now, the governor, state legislature, attorney general, and colonel, and many others have ushered in new laws, invested in and implemented programs to keep our residents out of harm's way and guns out of the hands of bad actors. So, today's announcement of a reduction in 2023 shootings statewide is evidence that these tactics are actively working in communities up and down New Jersey. Now, because I'm at the Rock and I have attorneys such as A.G. Platkin, Lisa, and law enforcement here, I'm going to say some legal verbiage as an attorney myself and start with Exhibit A. The governor has signed several common sense gun safety bills into law, making New Jersey a national leader in gun safety. From enacting safety measures to protect kids and families to combating auto thefts, which often lead to gun violence, to strengthening concealed carry laws and holding gun traffickers criminally liable, and more. This administration has displayed an authentic commitment to the safety of our state. Exhibit B. The Office of the Attorney General has played an instrumental role in this process as well, notably by overseeing several victim-related and violence intervention and prevention programs through its Division of Violence Intervention and Victim Assistance. And through VIVA, millions of dollars of investments have gone towards essential programs like the hospital-based violence intervention program and the community-based violence intervention program, which provide financial support to partnerships between hospitals and community-based entities to address the root causes of violence and crime in our communities, and also to provide support services to our vulnerable survivors. OAG has also invested millions over the past few years towards gunshot detection technology and other law enforcement equipment to reduce gun violence. Additionally, goes Exhibit C. The New Jersey State Police made a commitment to seeing less shootings in our state through its involvement in the Gun Violence Reduction Task Force, the statewide Affirmative Firearms Enforcement Office, and the Strategic Apprehension Fugitive Enforcement. This has created a statewide network of law enforcement resources tailored to apprehension and investigation of fugitives. So, as we continue to make New Jersey a stronger and safer state for all, it's important to recognize the important partnerships which plays in these efforts. I very much look forward to continuing the work alongside the governor with our many stakeholders and build on New Jersey's reputation as a national model for gun safety. Gov, Attorney General and Colonel, I believe I have stated my case, and I thank each and every one of you today. Thank you.
I just said to Tahisha, the jury will now deliberate. Thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership. And if you don't know Tahisha's background, not only is she a gifted and experienced lawyer, but a former elected official in Passaic County, a former judge, and she's been our outstanding Secretary of State now for 6 years. And I'm going to say, knock on wood, among other things, we've had flawless elections, including in a pandemic, at every step of the way. So thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor. I don't know where we'd be without him, first as Chief Counsel to me, and since then, after a short break, as our extraordinary Attorney General. Please help me welcome to the podium Matt Plackett.
We won't talk about football. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I want to thank the Governor for his introduction. I want to thank the Colonel and the members of the State Police, who I'll talk more on in a minute, for hosting us here. Lieutenant Governor, I get a real joy out of saying that about you now, someone who I've had the chance to work with for so long, and appreciate your comments. And to our federal partners, FBI, ATF, and all of the others who are here, thank you. As the Governor said, and I want to touch on what happened yesterday before we get to the topic at hand, hate has no place here in New Jersey. And while we mourn with the city of Newark and those who knew and loved Imam Hassan Sharif, we want our Muslim friends and neighbors to know that the ongoing investigation has continued to produce no evidence revealing any indication of a bias motivation in that incident. We'll continue to work tirelessly to solve this crime, and we will solve it. We'll also devote our resources to protecting the safety of our faith communities for all residents across the state, and to end the epidemic of gun violence. And as I said yesterday, I understand the fear and pain that too many New Jerseyans, and the Governor referenced this, are feeling right now, particularly in our Muslim community. And so we will do everything we can to ensure that every New Jerseyan is free to live and worship however it is they choose to do so. Imam Sharif is just the latest casualty in the gun violence epidemic that continues to plague this country. Every shooting brings unspeakable pain to the individuals and the communities impacted, and we must never lose sight of that fact. We'll continue to work together to prevent families from enduring the grief that Imam Sharif's family and loved ones woke up to this morning. In the face of such grief, it's also important that we recognize the lives spared. And so we gather here today to mark incredible decreases in shooting victims and shooting deaths in 2023. I want to thank Governor Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Lieutenant Governor Way. That took my breath away. I apologize. Lieutenant Governor Way, who from day one have been staunch supporters of gun violence. I personally I think about Governor February 14th, 2018 a lot, which was the day Parkland happened. 3.5 or so weeks into your administration, and you walked into my office and said, we have to solve this problem. And from that day, really before that day, from that day forward, this administration has done everything we can to address the gun violence epidemic, and I am grateful for both Governor Murphy and Lieutenant Governor Way's leadership in these efforts. And to Colonel Callahan, I want to thank my friend and an outstanding leader of the New Jersey State Police. I am so proud to work with you every day. The fundamental purpose of any government is keeping our community safe. And it's no secret that from day one, my top priority as the chief law enforcement officer of the state has been reducing gun violence. Our North Star is 0 victims. I want to be clear about that. Every person shot is a tragedy, and every person shot is one too many. If you spend any time with a victim of gun violence or their loved ones, and tragically I spend far more time with them than I would like, it is impossible to forget their pain. The Colonel and I talk often about Sequoia Bacon-Jones, 9-year-old girl, grew up dreaming of being a law enforcement officer herself, shot and killed not far from where we're standing here today while she was playing hide and seek in her apartment complex. The casualties of this epidemic, the Sequoias, the Imam Sharifs, must never be forgotten. So as long as I'm Attorney General, and I know as long as Governor Murphy is governor, we will not rest until everyone in all corners of the state is free from gun violence. But there are days like yesterday, frankly, where we can feel that this epidemic can never be stopped, like that nothing we do is enough. So even as we acknowledge that we have a long way to go, it's important that we recognize our collective successes. And today we do just that by announcing an extraordinary milestone in our work to end this epidemic once and for all. As Governor Murphy has said, I'm incredibly proud to report that in 2023, for the first time since we began tracking shooting statistics, the number of people shot in New Jersey was under 1,000. This built on a 25% reduction in the number of shooting victims in 2022. And then in 2023, the number of shooting victims declined by an additional 13%, 924 people. And the number of people killed in shooting incidents, as has been said, decreased to 191, an 8% decline from the year before. This significant decline in violent crime statewide is a remarkable sign that our efforts at all levels of government and with our community partners are working. It's a clear indication that when we treat gun violence like a public health crisis and take a comprehensive approach to tackling it, we can save lives. Because, as has been said, this decline in shootings was not an accident. In 2023, the state police, under Colonel Callahan's leadership, as well as I want to highlight Lieutenant Colonel Joe Brennan, who oversees the ROC, and Lieutenant Colonel Fred Fife, they set a clear goal. We wanted to see under 1,000 people shot in our state of 9.3 million people, something that, again, had never happened since 2009 when we first started tracking it. They called it the Under 1K Initiative. And in 2009, when we first started tracking, as you can see on the chart, we had 1,068 shooting victims. In the years that followed, the numbers varied, reaching an unfortunate high of 1,562 in 2012. But thanks to the hard work of the state police, law enforcement around the state, our federal partners, FBI, HSI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, many of whom are with us here today, as well as our partners in the communities themselves, we're able to drive that number down, not just under 1,000, but meaningfully below 1,000. The decrease in violent crime in 2023, and this is important, was true across the entire state, in our cities, in our rural areas, in our suburbs. In Newark, violent crime is down. In Trenton, shooting victims are down. And a remarkable example of this decline is in Paterson, where my office took over the police department in March of 2023. Murders in Paterson were down 39% last year. Shooting victims were down 25%. And that's, again, no coincidence. Under the strong leadership of Officer in Charge Issa Abbasi, the Paterson Police Department is becoming a statewide leader in effective and community-centered policing. One thing we've recognized in New Jersey is that there's no magic fix for ending gun violence. We've taken a holistic approach, using every lever available to save lives. We've used new legislation, civil lawsuits, violence intervention and prevention programs, which the Lieutenant Governor touched on, and latest evidence-based policing strategies coordinated through the state police. Thanks to the governor and the legislature, New Jersey continues to have the strongest gun laws in the country, and my office has proudly defended them. After the Supreme Court's reckless decision in the Bruen case, the NRA made clear, their words, that they wanted to strike down every single one of our gun safety laws. Well, guess what? Despite many legal challenges, those laws remain the laws of the state, and we are safer as a result. The evidence is clear. We are safer because of these laws. The laws passed by the legislature, signed by Governor Murphy, have allowed us to lead the nation in the fight against the gun violence epidemic. The governor recently enacted a strict liability law to hold gun traffickers criminally liable when their weapons are used in violence, something I believe we're the first state in the nation to have. We're going to use that tool, and are using that tool, to disrupt the iron pipeline bringing guns into our communities. Our newly created statewide Affirmative Firearms Enforcement Office, or SAFE, is the first office of its kind designed to use our newly enacted, again thanks to the governor and the legislature, public nuisance law, as well as other civil enforcement tools to hold bad actors and irresponsible actors in the gun industry accountable for putting guns in wrongdoers' hands. Thanks to other laws, we've cracked down on the proliferation of ghost guns, which are increasingly a problem in our community, and we've banned large capacity magazines. And in New Jersey, as has been touched on, we've also recognized something critical. For too long, we've ignored the fact that community voices play a role in combating this epidemic. To that end, thanks to the legislature and the governor, New Jersey has become a national leader for innovative violence intervention and prevention programs. Our community-based violence intervention program funds partners who use multiple strategies, including outreach teams led by credible messengers, people who have credibility on the ground, to de-escalate conflicts before they rise to a shooting. Our hospital-based violence intervention program similarly reaches victims early in their recovery after a violent crime when we know retaliation is likely to occur to prevent that cycle of violence from continuing. And our trauma recovery centers fund trauma-informed programs to reach victims of crime where they live, meet them where they are, and again, disrupt cycles of violence. Thanks to the governor's belief in our innovative and collaborative programs to stop violent crime, by later this month, we will have made available over $100 million in state and federal funds for violence intervention and prevention programs since 2019. Let me underscore that. Before 2019, that number would have been zero. We've now put $100 million to work disrupting violence. Again, these numbers don't happen by accident. So through these efforts, we are sending a clear message. If you illegally obtain and use guns in New Jersey, if you perpetuate cycles of violence, we will hold you accountable. Our Gun Violence Reduction Task Force, coordinated by the Division of Criminal Justice and with the state police, brings the resources and intelligence of more than 500 law enforcement agencies together, local, state, and federal, to bear on the small number of individuals who are actually driving violence in our communities. The task force meets every single day to discuss drivers of violence who have been arrested and assist in building the best possible prosecution against them. The small number of people involved in violence in the state should know we are laser focused on you. We're going to build the best cases against you, and we're going to hold you accountable for your actions. The task force uses information collected here and disseminated by the New Jersey ROC, where we are gathered again today, which operates as a clearinghouse for law enforcement intelligence in the state. The ROC, quite appropriately, has been recognized as the best state intelligence gathering center anywhere in the country. And I thank each and every person, trooper and civilian, who is part of what we do here, because you have all contributed to today's announcement. Colonel Callahan is going to speak more about the state police's other efforts, but this work simply could not be done without them. What started as an idea on a whiteboard in a state police strategy session last winter became a record-setting achievement because partners across government and our communities saw the urgency of this mission and relentlessly pursued it. It became an obsession, and I saw it. Daily, I would get briefings about the numbers from the night before, and I could sense the urgency of the team because they knew that each shooting we stopped was a life saved. They knew that it was a dinner table that didn't have an empty chair. They knew it was a birthday party and not a funeral. As long as our fellow New Jerseyans continue to be subjected to senseless and preventable violence, as long as parents fear sending their kids to school, we will use every available tool to ease their fear and to save lives. In 2023, I'm proud that we did just that, but we're not going to be complacent and we're not going to rest. Our goal is to continue to drive this violence down in 2024, but to do so in a way, as we have, that increases community trust in law enforcement, that builds stronger relationships with all members of our society, and that creates a safer state for all of us. And ultimately, I know I share the same goal as the governor, which is to end this gun violence epidemic once and for all. Thank you.
Really well done, Matt, and thank you for your leadership. I want to acknowledge a couple of folks here. Sam Parker, who is the Lieutenant Governor's Chief of Staff and has been with us in various capacities, and Parimal Garg, who's our Chief Counsel. And I thank you both, among other teammates who are here. But I was just reflecting, Matt, as you were speaking, you, Parimal, and I have been working largely since 2014, 3 full years before I got elected, on a whole range of policies, but especially on preventing gun violence. You also mentioned the legislature. I should also acknowledge extraordinary cooperation. Linda Greenstein in the Senate, Bill Spearman in the Assembly, who respectively chair incredibly important committees related to our reason to be here today. Speaker Craig Coughlin, Senate President Nick Scuteri. We also mentioned our federal partners, many of whom are here today, in addition to the state police and members of your team. I'm not a statistical, but magic. I think if you fit a curve through that, it looks to me like the average would have been about 1,300 over the past 15 years. That sound about right? So to put that into less abstract and more personal terms, relative to the past 15 years, 376 fewer New Jerseyans were shot in 2023. That's 376 dinner tables, birthday parties, as you pointed out. It's a huge deal, and it doesn't happen by accident. And by the way, I know we all collectively woke up now several days ago on January 1st and said we now got to go out and earn this again in the year 2024. And that's the commitment that we collectively make. Last but not least, batting cleanup. And by the way, you'll hear from him on this extraordinary achievement and on law enforcement generally. He is always by my side in matters of public health and matters of Mother Nature, of which I suspect you'll see a little bit more of us over the next couple of days. Please help me welcome the extraordinary Superintendent of the State Police, Colonel Pat Callahan.
Good morning. Thank you. I feel like Judy should be somewhere over here. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. It's still morning. Thank you, Governor Murphy, Lieutenant Governor Way, A.G. Platkin, First Assistant Lindsay Rotolo, certainly all those in French Blue, and our federal partners who are all here, mentioned by the Governor, mentioned certainly by the AG. It is a federal, state, county, and municipal effort that makes today possible. And I'll reiterate a few stats, and this place collects data. That's what it does. We call it, and it's Lieutenant Colonel Brennan's line, we collect the dots to connect the dots. And that small number of violent recidivist offenders, the efforts that happen here to argue for detention for them, to build cases for successful prosecutions, that's what happens here. And that's why the women and men here, both enlisted and civilian, they're the ones who have earned this. But I think Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama, talks about not really celebrating that win, knowing that there's another game to be played. And to the Governor's point, January 1st marked another chance for us to re-challenge ourselves, all of us, collectively throughout the state, to make sure that maybe we're able to stand here next January with numbers that are maybe under 900. So we'll continue to push that. A reduction in shootings by 13%, in homicides by 8%, a few different prongs to that. Our warrant details, unbelievably effective. And in a time when years ago they used to happen maybe every few months or twice a year, now with the work that's being done here, they can almost happen weekly. And when we analyze what happens pre-warrant detail to post in those targeted areas, that's a 31% reduction in shootings in those areas based upon those warrant detail alone. To drive home the AG's point, it's a small amount of violent recidivist offenders, sometimes cross-jurisdictional, that are driving the shootings in New Jersey. And those strategic deployments and investigations, phenomenal. Parole visits, what people wouldn't say, but what would that have to do with it? To simply knock on doors and visit those on parole that have been victims of shootings, that have been shooters. Also, another prong to this in order to make sure that we have people able to go home. Our federal partnerships, our task force officers, when we're shoulder to shoulder together, that FBI Violent Crimes Task Force, where we use the intelligence gathered here to go out into our communities in a very targeted way. I think back to years ago when we used to take our tactical patrol troopers in marked cars in uniform and go, let's say, to Trenton, and we'd go out and we'd stop somebody for running a stop sign. We'd stop somebody for having a taillight out, and maybe that driver would have a seatbelt warrant for $76 and was under arrest on his way to his second job to feed his family. when 2 blocks away around the corner was somebody that was wanted for 2 shootings. So you think about that paradigm shift in law enforcement and that flooding an area with marked troop cars really wasn't working, and it wasn't certainly helping us on that community trust, because those people in that community knew that 2 blocks away around the corner was somebody that was may have been involved in a shooting. So this shift in how we do things in a very precise policing, in a very precise prosecution manner is the difference here. And to the AG's point, that gun violence reduction task force, the referrals they make of those most violent offenders, 1,200 offenders responsible for 13,000 plus arrests, 565 of them victims of shootings themselves. When we work in concert with our county prosecutors and say, these 10 violent people arrested last night should probably be detained as part of that public safety clause in our bail reform laws, which is also making a difference. So for a place that collects data, and I remind our troopers the who, the what, the where, the when, the how many, there's that one question, though, and the AG talked about it. It's the why. Why do we do this 24/7? Why do the lights never go off here? And it's because of the kids like Sequoia Bacon-Jones, 9 years old, who takes around here on a Friday night on a playground where she lives. And in the weeks that followed, it made the hair on my neck go up when people said Sequoia was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I disagree with that. She was a 9-year-old girl on a playground on a Friday night, exactly where she was supposed to be. And the fact that we're still very close with her mom and her brother and her mother to this day wears the ashes of a 9-year-old girl around her neck, that's why we do this. That's the why. The who, the what, the where, the when, the how many, certainly driving that, but the why is so we don't have 9-year-olds not able to go home, missing her second Christmas. She would have been 11. So that's the reason why we're here. That's why this is a reason that we don't use the word celebrate. We use the word recognize these efforts, and I'm humbled and honored to be a part of this endeavor to make sure that we allow those people that live in our communities to live safe and productive lives. So I thank everyone, and thank you, Governor.
Pat, that was extraordinary, and God bless that young lady and her memory and her family. A couple of things occur to me before I invite my colleagues up to take any questions. Would prefer to keep them on topic at first, and then if anyone out here wishes to pummel me on off-topic matters, they could do that separately. A couple of things occur to me. I think you've heard this as a theme through all 4 sets of remarks up here. There's no one magic wand here. It is that phrase, it takes a village. This takes a whole lot of different vectors and realities. It is certainly law enforcement, none better than the Attorney General and team and the state police and team. So again, I tip my cap to Matt and Pat and to all of their colleagues, our federal partners, right up and down the line, the prosecutors, local law enforcement. It is certainly a big law enforcement element. We need to have laws on the books that we did not have when we got here. We have a whole lot of laws today that we did not have in January of 2018, and that has been a huge help to us. The deepening of the relations between law enforcement and the communities they serve, those community leaders, has been a huge element of success here. It is the violence prevention teams. I mentioned Newark Street, but there are examples of them all over in Patterson, Trenton, and other of our communities that have made a huge difference and a huge deal. And we haven't talked about it today, but I'll bet a big contributor when we gather a year from now, and God willing, and I like your point, we're not celebrating anything. Anything north of 0 is unacceptable. But you do have to recognize the trends, and you do have to recognize what's working. We like to think, I think all of us, Tahisha, myself, Matt, Pat, all of you, that we're Moneyball people, that we're not gut check, although that doesn't hurt from time to time, but you got to make decisions based on the facts, based on the science. I think a year from now, we may well look back and say that Arrive Together, which we have not talked about today, may have been a significant contributor, please God, to a furthering of the trend. And this is, and Pat, I was reminded of this when you said the guy goes, the policeman pulls up in uniform in a marked car at that traffic light or at that blown signal light. This notion is revolutionary. No state in America is doing it. And we only recently have rolled it out throughout the state. So I think the big benefit from Arrive Together will inure in 2024 and not 2023. And for those watching who don't know what this is, it's very simply, if there is a mental health call that comes in, mental health stress or distress call, what used to be a uniformed police officer in a marked car is now a plainclothes police officer, member of law enforcement, in an unmarked car sitting beside a mental health professional. These guys know this far better than I do. For far too long, members of law enforcement were asked to do things that were incredibly broad in scope, including being, frankly, a mental health professional. And that's not what you signed up to do. The notion, and then at the scene to make the decision between those two members as to who's the first lead, my gut tells me that that will save lives. It will further reduce this number. It will de-escalate, make a lot of those situations a lot less kinetic than they otherwise would have been. Again, we're not going to tear our rotator cuff patting ourselves on the back, believe me. This is a journey. I think we should be proud of the progress we've made, but we should be sober that we still have a long way to go. Most importantly, I'm, on behalf of our administration, incredibly thankful to each and every one of you. So with that, if I may ask the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, and the Colonel to come on up, would prefer you to at least begin if you've got any on-topic questions, and then again, I'll allow you to pummel me by myself with anything off-topic. Sure. I was going to say, this is frequently the case where I get no questions on topic, so.
So when somebody can connect the dots between talking with survivors and reducing gun violence.
Please.
I think the Colonel hit it. The number of people, the cycle of violence, and one day someone who's an offender very well could be a victim. And any shooting is a tragedy, just regardless of what somebody's past is. We don't want them getting shot. And so what the governor has invested in is essentially recognizing that there are people on the ground in these communities that have credibility with the individuals who are engaged in that cycle of violence in a way that, as hard as we try, somebody in blue is never going to have. And so what we have done is build teams in communities throughout our state that have individuals with that credibility who can go out and speak to people, whether it be at the side of a hospital bed, at a street corner, in a school, and give them a different way. Point them away from that cycle of violence towards a more productive lifestyle. And I have personally gone out and spent time with these teams. I lost a push-up contest in one of them on a street corner, and they are doing unbelievable work across the state. And so that is how we're doing it. But it still relies on the data that we're collecting here to identify where we're seeing spikes. I can't tell you the number of times we said, hey, we got a problem here. We've had a couple shootings in the last week here. Let's throw everything we have there and stop it before it becomes a bigger problem. That's how you get to these numbers. It's not one solution, but the violence intervention work is making a difference, and we're really proud of it.
Is there any video evidence of the push-up contest?
There is, unfortunately.
Okay. I should have also, in my It Takes a Village, the advocates here have been extraordinary, including for victims, the Bradys of the world, the Moms Demand Actions of the world. They've been huge game changers for us. Anything else, folks? You're welcome to stay or leave. Anything off topic? As Jack Nicholson once said, 10 seconds from a clean getaway. So, one?
Good morning.
Hi.
Fox News. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Couple of questions.
Fox News does not normally wish me a Happy New Year, so I won't forget this moment.
So is the New Jersey administration considering any executive orders or restrictions on the chartered buses from the southern border? And would New Jersey consider taking in any of these migrants?
Yeah, so I don't want to get out ahead of myself. Pat will correct me. You didn't ask this, but I do want to update folks. We've had now, as of 8 o'clock this morning, I think 26 buses. That was up from 22 the last time I spoke to you all. About 1,200 folks, plus or minus, and most of them have continued to New York. I think it's literally measured in the 5 or 6 dozen who have been picked up by family members, and I'm not sure that we even know that those people stayed in New Jersey. We know that they were picked up by family members. Secondly, we've been in active consultations among ourselves, as well as with our colleagues both in New York City and with New York State. I've spoken to both the mayor and the governor over the past now probably 12 to 15 hours. Our teams have continued to deliberate and speak. No news to make at the moment. We're obviously monitoring this very closely, but I would reiterate something I said yesterday, and maybe this is good in closing. Number one, this is a national issue. We need Congress to take action, period. This is not a New Jersey, New York. I spoke to the governor of Massachusetts this morning. This is a national issue. We need comprehensive immigration reform that has the elements that we all know are part of what will need to be the deal. We need to, in a responsible, humane way, secure our borders. We need to find a pathway for the many millions who are here to some sort of status. Thirdly, we need an enlightened, economy-contributing, job-creating, legal immigration system that's a 21st century reality. And shame on Congress and Washington for not having long ago come to that. And I'd say, secondly, this is in the absence of that, let's cut the gimmicks out. So with all due respect to the governor of Texas and others who I think are playing with people's lives, they should be ashamed of themselves. Let's get at a table, adults in the room, Democrats and Republicans, and figure out comprehensive immigration reform. With that, I want to thank the Colonel and his team for hosting us, the Attorney General, the Lieutenant Governor, all members of law enforcement, federal and state and local folks, advocates, community leaders for all of your help. Let's go out and continue to this progress in the year 2024. Thank you all.
Thanks, Governor.
Thanks, buddy. Keep Linda ahead. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, LG.
See you, folks.
Thanks for being here.
Happy New Year.